Hi, I'm John Biddle from Moorlands Primary Academy in Norfolk, and I'm hopefully going to spend the next few minutes sharing with you some of our Empathy Lab work that we've been lucky enough to be involved with since 2016. In year one, we decided to make our focus on refugees. Several reasons for that. Firstly, it was one of Empathy Lab's original 5 main themes. Secondly, there has been a significant recent increase in the number of migrants to the Great Yarmouth area. And thirdly, most importantly, we really wanted to work on improving the children's understanding of and empathy with migrants and refugees. The way we began the work was by discussing what we already knew about refugees, and we spent several weeks then immersing ourselves in high quality literature about refugees during English, during class story time, at every available opportunity. We then talked about whether we were able to empathise with the children in the books and about the similarities and differences between children around the world. The children then spent some time carrying out independent research. They visited several websites. They looked on the BBC Newsround site. They went to the British Red Cross website. We were also lucky enough to have some non-fiction text which covered the material in quite a tactful way. After that, we invited in a speaker from our local Amnesty International group who came to talk to the children about refugees and to discuss children's rights. After we had established that he wasn't Michael Rosen or Jeremy Corbyn, we did get onto quite a good discussion, and it really opened the children's eyes for them to realise that not everybody had the same rights as they did. We then managed to get 2 employees in from a local charity called Gyrus, which is short for Great Yarmouth Refugee Outreach Support, and they shared their stories of how first-hand they'd fled from the civil war in Mozambique and also the Karabakh War in Armenia. This was based on a suggestion from a parent who had worked with the group and who was quite keen for us to develop a relationship with them. The impact that this had on the children was absolutely huge because they were hearing from people firsthand who had been refugees, and they were absolutely entranced by their story. As an outcome, we then decided that we needed to make contact with some of the child refugees. So as part of Amnesty's Right for Rights campaign, we wrote them a letter and to let them know that they hadn't been forgotten. And I think without any hesitation, I could say it was perhaps some of the most powerful writing that the children had produced during their time in primary school. The letters, the thought, the effort that went into the letters was absolutely overwhelming. It was perhaps one of my proudest moments as a teacher. On Empathy Day, the first Empathy Day, which was in 2017, we were very, very lucky to get the author Elizabeth Layden, who had recently published a book called Welcome to Nowhere, which talks about her experiences in Syria and in Jordan working in a refugee camp. Again, it was a fantastic opportunity for the children to hear from someone who had experienced being with refugees and who wanted to share her story. Year 6 then decided that what they had learned needed to be shared with the rest of the school. So we spent some time planning some lessons based around a book called My Name Is Not Refugee. And they actually came up with some lesson ideas that they then delivered to children across the school all the way from year 1 up to year 5. It was based around the emotions that you would have if you were forced to flee your home. It was based around what you would take with you, what you would leave behind. And it was a really, really powerful whole school activity where we were working together, the children were cooperating together, and it was lovely to see them learning from each other. And it went a long way to improving relationships between children in different areas of the school. I'm not going to read all of the quotes here for you. I think the one from Troy is perhaps the most pertinent, where he says, "It's probably some of my favourite work that we've ever done. We're learning about the real world. We're all parts of it, like everyone, not just us and the people we know." And I think, he was 10 years old at the time. I think he's understood what empathy is all about, and I'm hoping that work is going to have a long-term impact on him. If I was going to offer any advice about working or introducing a theme for your Empathy Lab work, I think the first thing would be to think really, really carefully about the texts that you choose. We'd read all the texts that we were going to work with in advance, so we knew, again, what was happening with the texts. My second piece of advice would be to make sure that the Empathy Lab work is actually embedded quite securely into the overall curriculum. We found that when we really focused all our efforts on it, it had a much bigger impact. And I think if you did it as a bolt-on, if you did it as a half an hour lesson once a week, I think its impact would be reduced and severely limited. So yeah, my second piece of advice would be to embed your empathy lab work in your curriculum, embed it in your English, embed it in everything that you're doing.